I got her. So now that I do have her, how do I build her? Hell, how do I even play her? I spent so much time farming that I actually forgot to learn how she works, and I still haven't even done the test trial yet. So why am I making this video? Well, took a look. That's it. But wait. Before you swipe away, I did do some reading as to how to actually build her. Quite a lot of reading. And I'm going to show you how you can as well. So ladies, nuts, and gentlemen, it's time to cook. Before I actually say anything else, I want you to take a look at that. No, not that. That.
That's quite big.
There's a few things hotter than a pretty girl with a gun, and don't believe me? Just look at Lara Croft, Ada Wong. Quiet. Need I go on? Matter of fact, I will go on. Bayonetta, lady from DMC3, Cammy White. She was in the military, so it counts. The entire female roster in Overwatch, and every single fuck. We're getting off track here. Today's video is about Carlotta Montelli, the second daughter of the family I married into, making her my first wife. And me, royalty. I guess. She really is a lady of high caliber, which is basically a fancy way of saying that she's packing heat. Which is kind of ironic since she's a Glacio DPS, which stands for deaths per shot, considering how many things are going to cease being alive the moment I activate the Second Amendment. The most important part of her kit rely on something called moldable crystals. They're much more useful when they stack up, and she can't get any forte without it. Whenever you get any of these crystals, you can see them stacked up over her forte bar. They're also floating around her body, because that's where you're probably already looking at anyways. You can stack these crystals with various parts of her kit. You get 3 from her heavy attack, 3 from her intro skill, 3 from the first half of her resonant skill, and 3 if you hit the ground after any air attack, and 3 from her 2-part basic attack combo. She can hold a maximum of 6 moldable crystals at once, and spending 3 fills up a quarter of her forte, meaning 6 is half and the whole thing costs 12 moldable crystal stacks. The most optimal way to deal damage is if you can exploit her forte ability with every rotation, and it does get really specific down the line at the team section of the video. But it's not too hard to do considering she's much harder to resist. When her forte is full, you'll notice her hair color changes and her liberation gets a huge buff until she's swapped off field. When you use her forte circuit, she has an alternate charge attack which looks like this. During this, you can cut the cooldown of your resonant skill by about 6 seconds. Slight disclaimer, this only works once every 22 seconds when that red crystal is active after the last time it's been used. Meaning you can't just spam it no matter how efficient your rotations are. Like I said earlier, you can get 3 multiple crystal stacks from Carlotta's intro skill, but you can also get a quarter of her forte to start off. Now for her basic attack, remember how I said it's got 2 parts? The first half of her basic attack spawns the 3 crystals and another gun, while the second half spends those crystals with the other gun. Carlotta also has 2 parts to her resonance skill, which in the first half, she crystallizes anything it hits and spawns 3 multiple crystals. Hitting E again lets you move like Sonic and auto-lock to the nearest target while also burning the 3 crystals you got with the first half of her skill, as well as knocking the Sonic rings out of whatever you hit. If you take the 3 from her first half of both her basic attack and resonance skill, you can burn a total of 6 stacks really quickly, leaving you with 3/4 of your forte bar already full. The part of her kit that hits the hardest is definitely her liberation, and that looks oddly familiar. When she uses her ult, she applies a debuff called Deconstruction, which reduces the enemy's glacier resistance by about 18%, meaning 18% more damage. Her circuit also has an inherent skill which allows her intro skill, forte, and ultimate shots also apply that same debuff. And oh yeah, during her ultimate, Carlotta gets 4 rounds of ballistic ammo that does hybrid damage, because it does both single target and AoE damage sometimes, followed by a fully charged railgun blast at the end. Just keep hitting her basic attack button and everything dies. Just like my hopes of getting monetized if no one actually subscribes to the channel. Just take a moment, I'll wait. Alright, let's go. Her other inherent skill gives a bonus 20% flight stamina, which is great for exploration, but I'm more focused on how I can cause pain and suffering to all my enemies. She really does a lot of damage, and her forte ability converts most of her damage to resonant skill damage, and the only parts of her kit that don't count as skill damage are her basic attack and her intro skill. So the rule of thumb would be to use a set that buffs her skill damage, and she's most effective with the brand new Frosty Resolve set, with the 2 keys giving a 12% skill damage buff, and the 5 keys giving her a ton of glacial damage, and skill damage for a short time, but long enough for her to do what she's gotta do and get off the field. The main Echo has to be the Sentry Construct, which has a 12% glacial damage and skill damage bonus. For your main stats, I'd recommend crit. More specifically, crit rate if you're going to be going for her weapon. You're also going to want glacial damage bonus on your 3 cost and attack percent on your 1 cost Echoes. For your substats, you're going to want crit. Since a large chunk of her damage counts as skill damage, you'll definitely want that too. As well as attack percent and a little bit of energy regen couldn't hurt. Optimally, you're going to want 112 to 115% energy regen depending on the team, but if you have Zhezhe, you're not going to need any. Now, her favorite weapon is probably her charm or anything that goes above 300 caliber. But her best weapon would be her signature The Last Dance, which has a crit damage main stat and a passive skill that buffs our attack, basically. She gets a whopping 48% skill damage bonus at R1, easily making it her best weapon whenever you use her Liberation. The Static Mist is a pretty good alternative to that, as it's got a crit main stat, but it's more of a support weapon as it buffs the incoming Resonator, so it just makes for a really good stat stick, but it's a pretty good 5-star alternative to her signature weapon. Romance in Farewell is a new craftable 4-star weapon that buffs your attack when you apply a debuff on the enemy, which is perfect for our lady here. This could very well be her best 4-star alternative for free-to-play players. The Thunderbolt at R5 is a solid one, but you're gonna have to buy the Battle Pass 5 times and choose the same thing all 5 of those times. Seems kinda redundant to me for just one character. Her signature isn't too much of a necessity, but her damage is pretty broken even without it. But Nova Burst, Relativistic Jet, and Undying Flame are okay options as well. But Romance in Farewell still tops all those at R5, so that should be your aim if you're going to be exploring more options. In a majority of all her team comps, the most optimal way to open is with her intro skill, or, the better option, her 2-part resonance skill. Then swap cancel her Echo into your other supports, preferably Shorekeeper if you're running her most optimal team, which is Carlotta, Zhezhe, and the Shorekeeper. If you're running this team, then open with Carlotta's resonance skill, then swap cancel her Echo ability into the Shorekeeper. The goal is to build up enough Concerto, pop her ult, and then swap to Zhezhe and just funnel all the buffs all the way back to Carlotta. Then you open with her intro skill, then immediately double skill, burning all 6 stacks, and you should have your Concerto meter already full. Burn her Forte with her heavy attack, then go straight to her ult. Get your 4 free headshots and then a tank ammo, then just repeat it with her double skill and we're back in business. Now the team structure is actually perfect because it gives enough time to do all the setup work, and then all she really has to do is come on field to do a chunk of damage and she's right off. The benefit is, it gives her enough time for the red crystal on her Forte, enough time to recharge. Only problem is, it doesn't give me enough time to look at her. Now for Zhezhe, there's the option of which Echo set to actually use, whether to buff Carlotta with the Moonlit Cloud set or her standalone damage with the Empyrean Anthem, which buffs her coordinated attack damage. Only caveat to using the Empyrean set is she's gonna need a bit of crit rate to proc the 5-piece effect, whether for herself or Carlotta if she's the one on field. Arena is a pretty good stand-in for the Shorekeeper if you don't have her, but she's gonna lag a bit behind in terms of the damage amplification. But she does help shorten the amount of time the rotation actually takes, which might not be much of a good thing considering Carlotta's 22-second cooldown on her Forte. If you don't have Zhezhe, Tao Chi is a pretty good seat filler due to her 38% skill damage amp. I personally am not building her, but you can take my word for it. Now, Lumi could also work in that slot, but her buffs don't really last long enough, and it kind of cuts the rotation a bit short. Now for us free-to-play players, there's going to be a question as to whether to pull for her sequence nodes or to just get her weapon. Now, in general, let's answer that question. Carlotta's S1 just basically means whenever you hit an enemy that has deconstruction on them, you get a 12.5 crit rate buff. S2 is just overkill. I mean, really, come on. That is an outrageous number. S3 is an outro skill buff that lets Carlotta hit an extra 132% scaling, which is pretty damn high. But it also increases her skills multiplier by 93%, making it a lot better to still open with her resonance skill even with S1. S4 is kind of a support skill, which buffs all team members' skill damage by 25% for 30 seconds after using any version of her heavy attack, meaning you can open with your heavy attack for that extra 25% skill buff, and then follow up with your skill. S5 increases your Forte's circuit's multiplier by 47%, which is pretty dope, and S6 is really making me wish I robbed that bank when I had the chance. It buffs her liberation damage by 186.65% and then doubles the amount of crystal she fires with each shot. It also freezes the enemies you hit with it, removing the need to dodge at all. That is insane to me. I really should have robbed that bank. If you're going to be making the choice between going for her Secrets Nose or her weapon, as an F2P player, I do recommend that you actually go for her weapon because it is one of the best ways to optimize her damage. Anyways, I really hope you liked the video. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, and I'll make sure to see you in the future.